The sighted are isolated, which means the blind are twice as isolated right now. Let's talk about self-isolation. Hey gorgeous, welcome back to my channel. I'm currently in my living room with guide dog Olga and a comfy hood on and snuggly fluffy clothes, because what I'm going to talk about is all of my feelings from the past few weeks as a blind, self-isolating woman who hasn't been out of the house for a long time. Sit back and hopefully you can relate to me. Last week was the 7-year anniversary of me completely losing my vision, and this is always a really hard time for me. End of March of every year, I'm always sort of bracing myself to feel quite a few emotions, and I let myself because I think it's really healthy to keep them at bay. Keep really in touch with yourself about how you feel, because it's never going to be easy that time. It was a very traumatic period of my life, and that coupled with a global pandemic really set me back. And I'm not afraid to come on here and say that, because mental health for me ebbs and flows, and I've always said it. I have my bad blind days, I've got my counsellor. Currently, because of self-isolation, I'm not having counselling, so realistically I'm not going to feel the best ever that I've ever felt, because I can't vent my feelings in the normal way I would do. But I'm just trying to stay snuggly. As I said, I've got my furry clothes on, my furry doggy, my home. There's a lot that I am thankful for, but I am feeling that there is a cloud starting to appear over my head, and I know that quite a lot of you out there do feel the same as me, and I just wanted to address it, just get it out there in the open. Self-isolation is hard, and when you have felt isolated before, it brings back all of those memories that I used to feel when I first went blind. I've actually written a blog post on the exact feelings that I am feeling, and I will post it alongside this video, because it's important, hello Oxy, to stay in touch with your feelings. I feel that the sighted world is now feeling isolated, and that is making me feel very low, because there's memes and lots of images shared through iMessage that I'm receiving that a lot of my family and friends are taking comfort in, and it's just highlighting the fact that I'm more isolated. It's absolutely lovely that they are finding comfort in imagery, looking out the window, painting rainbows for lovely little children who need something to do. I wouldn't want it to be any other way in some cases, but it's very hard, because a lot of people are FaceTiming at this time, seeing their loved ones' faces, and I can't. I noted that a psychologist actually analysed how we communicate and receive emotions through physical contact, and FaceTime sort of replicates that. You're instantly seeing your loved one's reaction, and when you're blind you can't see that reaction. You don't have the same maybe mental processes. I certainly don't when I'm on FaceTime, and it was just so crushing for me. It's been my sister's 23rd birthday yesterday. She was opening all of her presents, and already I found myself shrinking into myself. There was a lot of our family on FaceTime, and I felt that I wasn't experiencing her birthday in the same way as I usually do. I feel her presence with her. She describes them to me. I'm sitting right next to her. I hug her. all of the feelings and the good things about still having touch and smell and your hearing as a blind person were taken away from me. And that was really hard, that I couldn't experience her birthday in the same way. Also, I went to my parents, this must have been about 3 weeks ago, before official lockdowns were announced, just to get to my camera equipment. And I was making a joke out of it, like, oh, you know, Mom, I won't come in, I don't want to, you know, see you. I want to practice self-isolation, distancing. I want to follow government advice, so I will stand in the garden. And we were finding that hilarious until the moment that I actually stepped out into my childhood home's garden, my parents' house's garden, and I felt one of the worst I felt in a long time. I saw my mom, but I couldn't hug her. Olga's getting all like, oh, don't worry, don't get upset. She's really, she knows when I'm upset. But Olgie, darling, lie down. Carrot, lie down. Lie down, good girl. I found that really hard because my mom was there. It was like, I might as well have been on the phone to her. I couldn't hug her. I could only hear her, and it really struck me that I wanted to just the ground to swallow me whole in some ways. In that moment, I just really wanted my eyes to suddenly see, even just for that one moment. My dad's isolating as well, and I was talking to him through the window. It was a really poignant moment for me because I said to them, you're in the house that kept me safe when I first went blind. You're being protected by that house. And it once protected me when I lost my eyesight and I felt isolated, and I'm finding it hard not to be with my parents and my sister at this time. I wanted more than anything that in that moment for my poorly eyes to suddenly see. I felt that I would have got more out of that situation than just verbal contact. And every time I FaceTime one of my relatives, my nan or my auntie, you know, naturally, because they all have vision and they're finding comfort in talking about those things, that they're like, oh, I like your hair, or I like your outfit. You know, naturally, we're more inclined to talk about what we're all doing in that one moment, and often that is quite visual and it's hard. There's memes that people are finding comfort in, and I think it's because the sighted world is isolated, and it's all sort of, the whole sighted world has now been shifted to social media. I weirdly, I felt like that was more my domain in some ways. I made social media a place that I reflected about my blindness more, and I feel, you know, even House Party, this app that my friends signed up to, it's not accessible. I tried to use it and the games aren't. And then naturally Animal Crossing's been released, and I used to play Animal Crossing as a young girl, and there's quite a lot of trauma associated with me, you know, around that game. I played it for hours and hours with my sister, and she's just got it for her birthday, and I'm so happy for her in so many ways. I don't know how to articulate it properly. I think it's just a really hard time for everyone. I feel somewhat a little selfish coming on here crying about how I can't see things when people are dying. You know, this is a real scary time, and I think it's just hard when you have a disability. I'm just seeing loads of people going hungry in my community because they can't get delivery slots, so that's really getting to me too. I wonder about myself maybe, because Olga now, bless her, we're trying to work on the harness, but obviously not going massively off-piste, as in we're trying to stay near the house. And usually I do quite a lot of routes to the supermarket with her, and maybe to the local bus stop, but I'm naturally trying to get out with her, and I'm hoping that she won't remember the route to the park, but you know, there's only so many routes you can do, and keep her exercised. So that's really hard. You guys probably are aware that she's very much in frame right now. She needs my attention a lot more than she usually does, just because we're usually in London in a massively busy environment, together, and she's not used to being at home as much as she currently is. I think it's just a really hard time for all of us. I feel weird talking about anything other than coronavirus at the moment. We can't escape it. I'm trying to with podcasts and music and thinking about what's amazing in my life. I've started The Witcher. I'm now going regularly to my exercise bike for at least half an hour, taking Olgie out. There's so many great parts of my life that I'm readjusting to blind life in isolation, but it just brings back so many memories of me feeling isolated and alone and heartbroken and in shock and trauma when I first went blind around 2013-14. I think it's just the fear of leaving the front door that I usually feel, but amplified. I try so hard in my day-to-day life to take things on the chin and not amplify my anxiety and feed into those feelings that I inevitably will have, of maybe feeling anxious about being outdoors with no vision, getting discriminated against, getting into a taxi with guide dog Olga, and all of these other things that I inevitably will face. I try and take them on the chin, but when also you add in the autonomy that's lost when you can't keep certain distances away from people in order to self-distance, you can't go to the shop. You feel scared. You don't want to go with your guide dog because if someone touches your guide dog, then Olga may have the virus on her that then will give it to Ollie, and that terrifies me. But then I'm really relying on Ollie to shop for us, and that doesn't make me feel as equal as I usually would. So I feel disarmed and unhappy about that, because usually I feel quite liberated and autonomous with where I am in my life and my blind journey and my sight loss journey. But I think this, coupled with my 7-year anniversary of going blind, I just feel as if all of these feelings that I've had in the past are coming up. I feel isolated, and I feel that everyone on social media talking about being isolated and having their full vision are, you know, rightly traumatized by it. But that's how I felt 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when I first went blind. And people are tweeting how they feel, and I think it's great to vent on Twitter. I'm doing it, you know, I'm part of the social media crowd that is tweeting about our emotions because it's important. But equally, I'm looking at those tweets and thinking, wow, that's what I felt when I first lost my vision. Wow, you know, I can't go to the shop like I usually would because I'm scared about not being able to social distance properly, or having the autonomy that I usually would, or going online to order something with my screen reader and feeling autonomous about that because the deliveries aren't coming. And I know, in the grand scheme of things, these are little problems. It just makes me feel so much more blind. I need to do something practical. I need to throw myself into a task. That's what I'm good at, that's what I always do, and I think that's what we all need to do. We need to consume ourselves with literature, podcasts. I'm going to start to read Michelle Obama's autobiography. Me and my mum are going to do a bit of a book club, and I'm talking to a few people about some video ideas. So that's how I'm going to get myself out of it. I'm not going to think about not seeing my parents and hugging my parents. FaceTime's really hard at the moment. Keep your chin up, everyone. If you're feeling the same thing as me, I am so sorry. Please talk about it with your loved ones. I am so lucky in so many ways, and I don't want you to think that me sitting here talking about my feelings degrades any of that. I've got my Ollie and my family and all of you guys, and I'm sure you have lovely people in your life that are supporting you right now. We all need to support each other. So many hugs from me to you. I want to give you a social distanced hug. Talk to me about what videos you want to see from me. Me and Ollie will be back with a live show on Wednesday next week. Love you guys, and see you next Wednesday for a new one. Bye.